The real estate market in Southern Missouri is thriving while other real estate markets are near crashing. And a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that so many people are migrating and moving to Southern Missouri. And you might be asking yourself, why? And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Moving to Southern Missouri is the best thing I've ever done for my family. These 5 reasons why people are moving to the Ozarks in Southern Missouri aren't necessarily in sequential prioritized order. And yet this first one really kind of is the biggest reason because it captures all walks of life. Some would say that can be unfortunate at times, but the number one reason I believe that people are moving to the Ozarks in Southern Missouri is affordability. And affordability really is across the board. So we're talking land value, cost of living, government fees, taxation, I guess that goes into government fees, food, and everything in between. Okay, so of course you're gonna find some items that are just the same wherever you go, but even down to gas. I just saw on the news that Missouri has some of the lowest prices in the nation. I'm terrible at knowing what that number is. I should have looked it up before filming this video. All I know is that right now, like about $40 fills up my gas tank. And that usually was like, that was getting to 60 plus at one point. So that's how I know that gas prices are low here. There's one other example I want to give in terms of food, because if you go to the store, for the most part, you're going to pay the same amount, for a retail price for food in any grocery store anywhere in the country, for the most part, except for certain items. But the big difference here is when you do farm to table, you're purchasing straight from the farmer, food costs are so crazy low. So to give an example, in California, we had bought this, I forget what they were called, but it was like a kind of, a randomized farmer's market box that farmers would come together in this collective. Comment down below if you know what kind of box. There's a term for what I'm talking about. But anyway, so we could kind of sign up for specific things, but then otherwise, of course, it would be seasonal and, whatever farmers had at the moment. But my husband and I had stopped eating dairy for the bulk of our life because it was so hard on our stomach and our gut. And we tried raw dairy and was blown away. We could drink tons of milk and nothing would happen to our bodies. There was no negative side effects. So we were buying, the really good, I think at A2, is that the certification, the high fat, whole milk, unpasteurized, raw milk, the whole bit. And it was $25 a gallon. If you're from Missouri, you are gasping right now. So when we got here, one of the first things we did was kind of researching farms and kind of looking where we wanted to buy stuff. And I remember we went to some dairy farmer and he was because this is what all Missourians would say is well, brace yourself because I had to raise my prices and I apologize, but our raw milk gallons are now $5. And they were expecting us to be oh man, that's steep. And we were that's incredible. So same with eggs, because we ended up having, we've had chickens here and there, but there was portions of our life where I was getting a master's, my husband was working full time and we didn't have chickens and we were buying them and farm fresh eggs, 8, 9, maybe $10 a dozen. Right? And here, same thing. People are apologizing because they raised their prices to, $3.50 for a dozen, down from $3, or up from $3. So, and that just kind of goes across the board. I don't want to, take too much time here, but, beef, lamb, chicken, produce, just everything. Straight from farmers is so affordable, so much cheaper. It's cheaper than the bad food you're buying in the store. So, it it really is awesome, and it really makes sense to eat healthy in Missouri, even though a lot of people don't do it. You can actually afford it here. The second reason that I want to note that people are definitely moving to Southern Missouri for is a majority of conservative values. And I'm sorry if that gets your panties in a bunch, but it's true. Now, that's not across the board. I mean, there are definitely people of all walks, and something just to be aware of, like if you're gonna move to I'm gonna say, Taney, Christian, and Greene County is definitely, more of a mixture of beliefs, political values and all of that. But, in the more rural areas, it is conservative, and something for people to know. And I would say that there are a lot of people, especially actually baby boomers, who have lived their life not actually happy where they are, feeling, and that goes into affordability too, but really feeling like they want to finally, for that last, era of their life, they want to be able to put their back to people who have similar values than them. And it is something I hear every day from clients moving here. I'm not just saying it because I only want conservatives to move here. I wouldn't do that. It is true. There's just a lot of people moving here to be in, a mass of people with like minds. The third reason I want to take note of that people are moving to Southern Missouri for is really actually 4 different reasons. I'm going to smush into one because I think that they're all interrelated. And that is incredible grassland, abundant water, 4 mild seasons, relatively mild. We did just have an ice storm, but usually pretty mild, and a long growing season. So I can give you, one, I would say for ourselves, the long growing season was one of the many. I mean, it was down on the list because, we moved during COVID. So I probably don't have to go into too much, explanation of why we moved here, because anyone that knows what it was like during COVID in Southern Missouri versus California would understand why we moved here. But the growing season was actually one of the reasons that we did move here. So we were considering northern Idaho, like Bonner's Ferry. I love it up there. Super amazing people, salt of the earth, it's amazing up there. But, sometimes it's more than 6 months of snow, and it can be piled on during that. And I feel like a wimp saying it, but it's just too much for us. Now, could we survive in that? Yeah. And at one point I was trying to talk my family into Alaska, so cause I just thought that would be real salt of the earth people up there, survivalist salt of the earth people. But if I'm gonna be kind of I'm in my comfort stage of life where I like nice things and I like being comfortable, I might go back to survivalist me. I might have to. But if I get to choose, I'm in the more bougie, comfortable phase of my life, and that's why, believe it or not, I wanted to choose Southern Missouri. And we've got other clients from Idaho, same, kind of similar people to us, moved to actually near Bonner's Ferry, and they are selling and moving here because of the snow. They love the people up there, they love the culture. Now, other parts of Idaho are getting, going through California-ification, and they're starting to suck, honestly. But northern Idaho is still awesome. But the snow, they're farmers, and it just really is hard, so they're gonna move here to Southern Missouri. Yeah, so weather is definitely a factor of why people are choosing Southern Missouri over other states. Another reason, the fourth reason that people are moving to Southern Missouri kind of in droves is non-restrictive government policies, but I also want to note that it's the culture surrounding that. So when you live in a place like, California, where you have, such rigorous government restrictions, you get a culture of people, and I don't know how this works. This is some like World War II, like Nazi Germany, like figured out how to do this, but you get a culture that supports it. And that's when you get the neighbors tattling on neighbors. And that is so how it is in California. And I don't care if we're talking southern to northern, okay, urban to rural. It is just like that there. I really truly feel like people have stopped talking to each other. Like if you had a problem, I mean, this is the way I've always been, and I'll always be this way no matter what state I'm in or what country I'm in, is that if I have a problem, we're going to have a conversation. You know what I mean? A mano, right? Whatever that means. But there is definitely, I think that it's like a culture that once you get this support where it's like, it's okay to just tattle with, you know, to the government. I guess those people were just never taught not to be tattletales, you know, I think it's a very cowardly way of dealing with issues. I truly do. Now, that isn't to say, I haven't done this here in Missouri, but in California, there was times where I saw like crazy violent abuse and I called the police, which, you know, I was raised in a messed up community, but it was definitely like, don't call the police. But I kind of got liberated when I was like, you know what, I'm gonna call the police when I see like someone neglecting or doing something crazy to a child, or, you know, just crazy stuff like that. I'm calling the police. So that was actually like an evolution for me, because where I was raised in Humboldt County, which we'll talk about, you know, I've talked about the hippies and how traumatizing it was to be raised by them, but that is actually how a lot of abuse and neglect continues there. So it's weird. Those same people who, you know, don't call the police, I'm like this really abusive person, don't call the police, they will literally call like zoning though and tattle on their neighbor. So it's a really weird culture. Don't call the police, but I'm going to call zoning, you know, planning and zoning on you. So also just to like paint a picture of what planning and zoning looks like in, you know, Nazi Germany, I mean California, it looks like a SWAT team. So story time. There was a family, you know, probably not an upstanding family. It was a hippie family, but they had an outhouse. And I do not think that's a crime. I don't. They had an outhouse, and that was against, you know, you're not allowed to have outhouses in California in most counties. Even with all the water problems, you think that it would be supported, but no. And planning and zoning was called on them, and they came in with like M16s, SWAT gear. Like they came in just like a SWAT team. They had children and family members on the ground, guns drawn over an outhouse. So I'm actually feeling like heated right now, because I want to tell these stories because a lot of people here couldn't even imagine how Gestapo it is there in California on so many different levels, like so many different levels. So yeah, people that come from states that understand that and have experienced something like that, when we talk about, you know, little to no government restrictions, it's emotional for people like me. Like we're traumatized, okay? Like it's been like a war zone, you know? Like planning and zoning isn't like some people who are kind of annoying that you have to go see at City Hall. Like these are like military over an outhouse. Yeah, so I would say that for those of you that understand what I'm talking about, you know, you understand how crazy it is, and that is for sure a reason that people are moving to Southern Missouri. I want to give you another example. Sorry for all the stories, but I think they help to kind of, whether you're local Missourian or you're moving, like it's gonna give you, it's either gonna be entertainment or kind of like therapy. So right now in California, in Northern California, there is a huge clampdown about water use, but none of it makes sense, right? Like, I was taxed heavily for storing water. I had 40,000 gallons of water storage and they charged me heavily for that. You think that that would be like almost like a credit, like a tax credit, right? But that is actually, it's a very steep fee for storing a certain amount of water there. So right now what they're doing is, if you have your own well, your own spring, right? They are monitoring how much water you are using. So right now they're using tons of fear tactics. There's some people who are fighting it, but most people are just rolling over out of fear because they are threatening to come in with that militarized SWAT team. And this is all water board now. So this is state, but then supported by counties and cities. Mostly counties. So this is mostly like rural, right? But I'm sure some municipalities are supporting this as well. But so they want to come in. Okay, if you're a Missourian, your head is going to explode. They want to come in and they want to put a meter on your water system, on your property, your private property that you paid for all that water system, right? They want to put a meter and they want to limit the amount of water that you can use every day. And at the same time, they want to then charge you, if you want to store water, to actually do the right thing where you're not pumping out of, the creeks or pulling from the springs in the low water time, and you want to store water, they're going to charge you for that. So see, the whole thing is backwards. The whole thing, I mean, come on now. You don't have to be a wacko conspiracy theorist to see like the level of control that they're gunning for. And I think it's wise for anyone in any state to know that these things are happening, to just have your eyes wide open, be aware. So now we are brought to the last reason, the fifth reason that people are moving to Southern Missouri. And that is really with a spiritual motivation. My previous video was about fellowship in Missouri, and that's huge. People wanting to move here because they know that this is the Bible Belt and fellowship is strong and the ministries are amazing, the churches are amazing. I spoke to that in my last video because it is such a real thing. But actually, what I mean with this reason is that there are a huge amount of people that have communicated to me that they moved here because they felt literally led by God. And that is very much how I felt when researching where we were going to move. I mean, of course, it was all the reasons, but it was like a magnetism. And really, as I was building that relationship with God, I felt compelled on a spiritual level. And what's been so beautiful is moving here, becoming a real estate agent, and now hearing it all the time, that other people feel and have felt, are feeling right now, the very same thing, that they feel led by God, pushed, whacked by God to move here and move here as quickly as possible. So it's just so unusual. I think it needs to be said. I honestly have never, in the modern era, heard so many Americans attest to that they're moving to a certain place because they feel motivated by God. So I truly think that that's special enough to know. As always, I want to thank you for staying and watching this video. It means a lot to me if you did enjoy this video. If you subscribe and like the video, it really helps the algorithm push this out more to more people who are like you, who are like me, who are searching and questing and looking for the next great phase of their life. All my information, it's always in the description if you need to get a hold of me. If you have any questions, if you want to leave comments, I love it. I'll respond to them. And I hope that you have a blessed day.